Hello, friends, and welcome to the Spooky Chris podcast. My name is Chris Ringler. I'm an author, podcaster, movie reviewer, and general ne'er do well. On this episode, I was given the opportunity to speak to someone with the film Missing Couple. It is a new film that has come out, and it is about two vanfluencers who had purchased a piece of property with the hopes of settling down and getting off the road, and discovered that there's more to the property than they had imagined. And the film is a presentation of their footage along with the footage of someone that is trying to find out what happened to them. And I was lucky enough to speak to someone with this film. So give a listen. Thanks a lot. Hello there. Do I have you?
Hi, Chris. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing well, thanks.
Thank you so much for making some time to talk to me.
Of course, happy to connect.
Oh, this is fantastic. So I will dive right in here. So how did you get into filmmaking?
Good question. I come from a long line of storytellers, I guess. Big families on both mom's side and dad's side, and I'm on the younger end of the cousin spectrum. So initially, I just enjoyed listening to stories and reading a lot of nonfiction and fiction, and then I became very interested in the line between the two. I think nonfiction becomes fiction over time as the story is told and retold and shaped and embellished. And unfortunately, I think the inverse is also true.
Now, is that kind of what drew you? Now you've made some documentaries. Is that what drew you into wanting to make documentaries and getting into that kind of work?
I think so. I think listening to stories as a kid, more as an observer, um, I became more comfortable in the world if I have a camera in my hand, like if I'm behind the camera, like a layer between reality and me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I do love narrative films, but I think the true human stories can be the most powerful and often the most horrifying.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now you are involved with this new movie that just came out, hashtag Missing Couple. Now, how did you get involved with that?
Good question. It's still a developing situation, so I can't speak too specifically about my role. Um, I have interacted with the footage. I heard about the story, and a team and I kind of converted it into a film, if you will. We thought maybe that would be a good way to unlock a large audience and kind of introduce this true story to hopefully a lot of people. Um, yes, so that's about all I can say about my interaction with the project.
Okay. Well, what was it? What was it like when you first when you first saw the footage as it came in? What was your first thoughts?
Yes, so Austin and Janet going missing caught my attention on social media. And with the documentary background, I felt like this could be a really relevant story that could really span the distance between social media and film. It's also, I've been looking to explore a story in the social media world because I do believe social media is horrifying. Um, so this felt like a good time and a good platform to jump in and use some of my experiences to yeah, blend those two worlds. I did read that you don't have social media. Do you want to explain why that is? I'm intrigued.
Oh, I I do ish. I just for uh for my own mental well-being. I had gotten off. I have an Instagram account now because I have a an event like a spooky event. Um, it's an organization of one, but I put on spooky events. So I have a Facebook for that, and I have an Instagram account for that, just because you can't really promote without some manner of social media. So and between that and being an author, it's kind of I have learned it's very hard to not be part of the cool kids, but I am definitely not as active as I once was.
Sure. Gotcha.
And now, how was working on this movie different than your other documentary experience?
Um, Good question. I'm tiptoeing a little bit here. Um, other documentaries I've worked on have been historically based in a way that this one was not, like telling a story from the past. This being kind of breaking news, unfolding on social media, piecing things together, getting footage here and there, traveling to Centerville, kind of in the thick of things, um, was definitely different and exciting and felt, I think the social media element as well, that hybrid felt like a very modern way to tell a story.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, what's it like? So you're dealing with people that have, I mean, beyond a private life, they have a public life. What's it like trying to craft a narrative, knowing that there's expectations from the family personally and the loved ones, and then those that are invested because they're fans?
Sure. Yeah, it's been interesting to see the reaction. I think the vast majority of reactions in the online discourse don't realize that Austin and Janet are real people. They're watching this as if it was a normal thriller film. They don't, and if I the first time I read your review, it seemed like you maybe also didn't know Austin and Janet were real people
No,
posting on
I mean,
real pages.
no, I absolutely admit I did not. So that was a revelation to me.
Sure, great. So yeah, it's interesting to see the reactions, but it is clear that a lot of people don't know that they're real people. So um, while we were working on the project and releasing the project, they were missing, and uh, I won't give too much away now. Maybe we can have a spoiler section toward the end of the conversation, but
Okay.
it was a sensitive topic. It was we were in touch with Austin and Jana's families, and yeah, it was um, scary and exciting at the same time.
So, all right, so you went along on the same journey as those of us that have seen the film now. Whereas, if you were kind of going through all this footage and kind of trying to make a narrative out of it, what was it like seeing kind of things unfold? What were what was going through your head?
Sure. I mean, first of all, we can talk about the location if you'd like. I mean,
Yeah,
just
absolutely, absolutely.
traveling to Centerville to try and make more sense of it was profound, I would say. It's a town that grew up around a railroad stop, and the railroad does not run anymore, has not run for decades. So it is a literal ghost town. There are things, most of the buildings are boarded up. There's not a single grocery store in town. As you've seen in some of the footage from the film, there's the closest hotel is, I think, 35 miles away.
Wow.
So it's really a town forgotten. So that element itself made the research for the project um, at times disturbing, frankly. Like at night, you hear things in those woods. You hear voices, you hear things that don't sound human. You hear and everything in between. There are animals, even though you don't see anyone on properties for miles. It's a very strange, isolating experience where the mind starts to play tricks with you, and going back to kind of the idea of fiction versus nonfiction, reality versus surreality versus where is my mind going. It's just a place that felt very weighted.
Yeah. You in our correspondence, you had mentioned that you felt that there was kind of something strange about the town. Did you have any other kind of experiences, or is it just kind of overall vibe of the place?
Um, So I wouldn't want to speculate on my personal beliefs are one thing, but kind of tangible, evidence-backed experiences are another. So like hearing voices in the wind alone in the woods is a personal experience that I'll save for my journal, if I may.
Yeah.
Um, but I think anyone else who's spent time, hiking on long trips alone, just solitude in general, particularly rural solitude, is a pretty spooky experience. So I have come to believe that history does linger in a place, particularly if it's not properly acknowledged. Um, I'm curious if you have similar thoughts or how you feel about that.
It's funny that you say that because this is the third conversation I've had about um hauntings and ghosts in I don't know in less than a month. I have a friend that just released a book that is about a ghost, and then talked to somebody about my own experiences. So I can definitely see where you're coming from. The idea that yeah, because I and also have had personal experiences, but they don't necessarily correspond with my personal beliefs.
Mhm.
So it's hard to kind of get the two halves of the sandwich together. But I definitely can see where um, humans impact everything just by our very being, and seeing that we can impact the surroundings we inhabit so inherently. It's hard to believe that we can't um, also infect is the word I want to say, but like inhabit the kind of places between as well.
Mhm.
So I can definitely see that.
Mhm. Yeah, Centerville was like this, but Centerville was one of I've been to, alleged haunted sites before out of interest, but I've also been to places where just in normal daily visiting, there's like a visceral feeling of discomfort, and then I'll read about the history of the place afterwards, and it makes sense. And Centerville was that to me. I didn't go in expecting something haunted. I was curious about the story and the social media element. Um, but I will say Centerville is among the eeriest places I've ever been.
I absolutely can believe it. Now, when you were out there, were you able to walk their property and to kind of see everything from basically ground zero from where the story is told?
Yes, yes. So I did go to the abandoned cabin. Um, and I mean, you can look up, well, I mean, first of all, I encourage you to follow at Austin and Jana on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and their actual socials where this started playing out before the film was released. But and then also read up about the history of Camp Van Dorn. This entire vicinity surrounding the farm and the abandoned farm were on a World War II Army camp called Camp Van Dorn, and the remnants of Camp Van Dorn are all over the region, including the structures that are depicted in the footage. That those are former Camp Van Dorn buildings that are down to their foundations.
Wow. Now, I actually I had looked that up, as much as I can look things up at work. And I so is the history of because it and again you and I had talked by email a little beforehand. Um, the the history stuff you captured, was that something? And if you want, maybe you can talk about that a little because you said that was a really like interesting part of this film.
Certainly, yeah, that was not something that was on my radar going into the region. Frankly, I think it's something that was not on Austin and Jana's radar as well. I think that was the big surprise when they arrived at the property. Um, Even you can see that in their YouTube tour and some of which is in the film. Um, their initial reactions to finding these remnants of this army camp. They still didn't know what it was when they were walking the property until they met the librarian and read a bit about it in town. Um, so I in since traveling there, I've dug into the history a bit, and there's no consensus. Like I don't, you know, that element I hope people explore and come to a satisfying conclusion, and maybe that will actually help the region, frankly, help the town. That could be what's lingering there. Because I don't think the truth is public. I don't think, this is a World War II story, so I think living memory is passing as well. I don't know if anyone still alive knows what actually happened. There is a legend or a conspiracy theory, depending on how you look at it, or a true occurrence of more than 1,000 soldiers that were gunned down. Um, there is historical evidence that at least one soldier was killed. So somewhere between 1 and 1,100. As far as nobody knows for sure yet. I certainly don't know. I'm inclined to believe some terrible things occurred there and haven't been acknowledged or atoned for. Um, I don't think there's evidence to support a slaughter, but nobody knows. And I don't think it was properly investigated. So I would think it's somewhere between 1 and 1,000. There is an account, if you look at the investigator at Found Person Report, if you look at his TikTok, he has posted uh, a man who says he was an eyewitness there, who redacted a report upon superior's orders that there were at least 35 soldiers killed, I believe. So I think it's probably closer to one death than 1,000, but it's whatever it is, it's been hushed up, I would say. And I think it's still very polarizing in the community.
Yeah, that absolutely sounds like it. Now making this film, which I mean, it's kind of crafting it with what you're working with more than kind of a straight up fiction film. Has have you seen kind of a happy marriage between your documentary side and your, fiction telling side? Kind of like the two halves coming together for all of this?
Um, I don't know how best to answer that. I don't, I think we tried to depict what happened there, with the footage we had. And the as we discussed via email, the librarian is the actual librarian in Centerville. The docent of the Camp Van Dorn Museum is real, the lifelong Centerville resident who was afraid to go on camera but did speak is a real woman who I actually spoke with as well after I found her after all of the occurrences down there. So um, in terms of finding a narrative in the footage we had, I think that's a challenge for every documentarian. So yeah, I think I'll leave it at that.
That's absolutely fair. What are, this is something I'm curious. As a filmmaker, what are the films that influence you? Not in any general capacity, but just like as a documentarian, as a storyteller in general, like what inspires you as a storyteller, we'll say.
Excellent question. I watch a wide variety. I read a wide variety. Um, I love history. I'm fascinated with history. So I think the mingling of, like in Missing Couple, I think the mingling of an unknown history and a present day mystery really hits um, really hits on multiple levels for me. So this was, an exciting story to tell, I would say. Um, I love foreign cinema. I love narrative and documentary. Um, yeah.
Fantastic. What's it been like? as it's been released, kind of your has the film, did it have like, I mean, this would be, difficult because of the subject matter, but like, did it have a premiere, or were you able to celebrate its completion in any way, while also acknowledging the heavy subject matter? Like, it's there has to be kind of a hard kind of path to walk.
Sure. No, no, there's been no real, well, we can get, if you want to, let me know when we should transition to a spoiler
Okay.
section.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would
Well,
obviously encourage everyone to watch the film. And one very interesting element, I should say, is people who watched Austin and Jana's YouTube videos and have now watched the film have reached out and told us about areas in which lurkers are in the woods watching them that we were not even aware of when we put the film together.
really?
So there are clues, and there's more to it than we even knew. Even having interacted with the footage, which is, like, I have goosebumps now thinking about it. It's I yes. So, but to return to your question, kind of, we haven't had a real celebration. Um, when we transition to spoilers, we can talk a little bit, touch more on that a little
Okay.
bit.
All right. Yeah.
Um, I will say, setting out to tell a story about social media and, frankly, the dangers of social media has really led to me and our very small team spending a whole lot of time on social media to monitor this thing. So it's almost like maybe the joke is on us. Like, this sort of hellscape that we wanted to document has drawn us in now. Um, so I don't know if you can relate to that, having tried to cut back on your own socials, but it's been very heady.
I mean, oh, I could. I mean, only as someone who, as someone who ingests social media and stuff, and kind of is social culturally aware. But I can't imagine, even with what your work has been, because you have done other documentaries and stuff, so you're out in the world in a way that I have never been. So I cannot imagine the how fascinating this must be. As you say, like, kind of peeking in to see, listening to see what people are saying, because that's, yeah, it's got to be absolutely fascinating. I Scary, I'm sure, as well. I mean, yeah, yeah, people are kind of weird. So,
Certainly. I mean, it's wild to put anything out into the world, of course, but something that's hyper topical. Um, yeah, the reaction's been interesting. We've really been embraced by found footage communities, I would say. And the ending has been very controversial. But as documentarians, we didn't. Well, we can
yeah,
get into
yep.
that.
I'll ask you a few more,
Tell
and
me
then
when.
we'll
Yeah.
yeah we'll get into that. Well, so what has it changed how you view social media? Like, making this and seeing what they went through.
Good question. I think I went into social media. Sorry, I went into the project wary of social media, and it's a double-edged sword. Amazing things can happen, connections can happen. It can keep you in contact with people. It can reunite you with people. Um, so there are certain advantages to social media. It makes the world smaller in a sense. Um, but also, I would say social media haunts us. Like, we're also haunting ourselves. Like, social media floods our minds and transports us to fake worlds. Like, in a sense, we're becoming ghosts in our own lives, and disconnected from reality and real people. So that has been my experience since the release of the film, I guess. But I've been wary of social media for quite a time, I would say.
Yeah, I can understand that. It's going to be interesting. I have a daughter. It'll be interesting to see, her generation and beyond what history looks like, because they're going to have all of these oceans of first person narratives, but so much of it is going to be cotton candy. Like there's nothing to it. It's just all of this, there's not history to it. It's just this personal kind of storytelling. So it'll be interesting to see what they parse out of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what has the overall reaction to the film been?
Overall, I mean, yeah, you're welcome to look at Letterboxd and yeah, found footage groups on Reddit and Facebook, and um, I'm happy that people are watching it, and overall the reactions are very positive. And as mentioned before, most people don't know that they're real people. So I think once that element is introduced, it elevates the experience as well. Um, but the ending has been controversial. So yeah, I think um, overwhelmingly positive reviews, which is nice, with questions about the ending. Yeah.
Well, you know what? This is as good a time as any. So I will just put out there in the world, if you have not seen the film, it is streaming. It is absolutely worth your time, and you should see it because it's a really just fascinating movie, and it's really well put together. And I think a lot of folks are gonna get something out of it. Uh, so spoiler warning from here on, deep waters. With that being said, let's get into kind of, what is your what are your feelings about kind of, any kind of quote unquote controversies on the ending?
Sure. The fact is, we also don't know as the documentarians who interact with this footage. Um, and I think, and these have all been posited on Reddit and in forums. So um, some of this is also new to me and kind of has shifted my way of thinking. I do think that Austin and Jana left home and wanted the stalker to follow them. So yeah, in the film, Jana does mention that um, they left an uncomfortable situation, and eventually it comes out that there was a stalker who was stalking them online. Um, that said, I think unknowingly they arrived on haunted land. So that's in putting everything together. What we did feature was, the pond, the garden, the kind of murky cistern, everything underground was haunted, and that informs my kind of historical readings of something very disturbing occurred at this location. So I think that the literal ground felt haunted with what was occurring to Austin and Janet there. Um, so that's kind of version A, and I think what informs the haunting in the film. Um, my interpretation would be Austin and Janet were confronted by this history, these figures from the past, and they got themselves converted into those creatures. So by the time the investigator arrived on the premises, Austin and Janet were then haunting him.
Okay.
Um, this has been alluded to all over Reddit and these found footage groups. Um, there is a shot toward the end where um, the investigator is surrounded and falls into the cistern. And I believe the cistern potentially could be kind of a portal to the underworld where the haunted underworld where Austin and Janet were also converted. So I believe the investigator has also been converted. Um, so that's where I am with it now. I'm thrilled to see people chiming in and positing their own interpretations. And I don't know, so I'm thrilled to discuss this with anyone. Um, how about you? Did you have a takeaway from the ending?
What's funny is I didn't uh think of it in that way. I figured it was, I thought it was more kind of shadows of the past. Just however many people had perished there,
Hmm.
kind of returning, kind, in my mindset, you kind of go to classical kind of hauntings where it's more of a this is mine, not stay away, and
Mhm.
they make it clear if you do not stay away, there are consequences, and this was just the consequences of not staying away. Um, but that's interesting. So, do you feel then that this story is as much as or at this moment that this story is concluded, or do you think that there's more investigation that can be done to maybe learn more?
I think there's plenty of more investigation to be done. Um, I don't know a timeline on that. I don't have more footage currently. There is a scenario where, a few people and I go back there and really dig in. That's something we would be interested in. Um, I would like to introduce one more theory that I read about.
Sure.
Someone posted, and even after putting things together and you know um, putting the footage, choosing the footage, and putting it in order and offering it to the world, I had not considered this, and it really turned everything upside down for me. And I just read about this within the last couple of days. Um, Someone acknowledged that it could have been Austin and Jana luring the stalker in and then punishing him, which is, in my mind, a very satisfying, would be a very satisfying thriller film conclusion.
Yeah.
Um, but this, I think a Redditor said they thought the most horrifying explanation would be that these real life influencers haunted themselves for attention.
Oh, that's interesting.
So the film is what they like. I like potentially through an intermediary, they got us the footage somehow, and we were almost we were like unknowingly complicit in creating this narrative that would boost them on social media. And the way I feel about social media, I hadn't approached it from that angle, but that just reading that sentence gave me chills, and it's an interesting theory.
And that is interesting because then suddenly the internet is their house that they haunt now. Like they're kind of everywhere. So that's interesting. Wow.
Right.
Well, this has been amazing. I want to do you have anything beyond this project that you're working on or kind of thinking about?
At the moment, I've been fully absorbed with this. There's always projects going on, but frankly, I've become uh, pretty obsessed with this case. So I think you bringing up, is there more to explore there, also kind of gets me excited and um, makes me want to go back.
I
So
I I can imagine like it's a haunted place and a haunted town with more and more mysteries there. So I absolutely can see that. That's great. This has been fantastic. I can't thank you enough for making time to speak with me.
I really appreciate it, Chris. Thanks for having me.
And again, like I will say it in the outro, but yeah, I hope more and more folks take a look at Missing Couple and keep giving you kind of their feedback and kind of their interpretations.
Totally. Yeah, again, like more eyes are better than the more the merrier. Like we'd love more eyes on it to really, really figure out what happened there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I hope this gets out to tons of people, and I wish you the best with it.
Cheers. Thanks so much, Chris.
Bye. I cannot thank my guest enough for giving me some time to talk about Missing Couple. It's a really fascinating movie, a lot to talk about, and really being able to talk to my guest really kind of shows that there's a lot to look for in this film. And there's a lot to talk about and think about. You can find it. I found it on Tubi. You can find it streaming. It's a really engaging film, so you should give it a look and come to your own conclusions. So I really thank my guests for making some time, and I thank you for listening. You can find everything of mine at spookychris.com. I will talk to you soon.